This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
What's going on here? Is this some kind of
Magic. The darkest magic. Somebody, I don't care who, tell me what is going on.
How are you gonna spring us?
I have no idea. Here, I don't even know what the hell that means. All I know is this little pants character comes out of thin air in the middle of a goddamn alley while his buddies are cutting everybody to shreds, and he just stands there waiting for me to drive my truck straight through him with light coming out of his mouth.
Good evening. Welcome to this week's edition of the WayBack Movies podcast, a show where we review the best and not so best of 80s and 90s cinema, because really, fuck the 2000s. My name is Steve, and with me on this crazy journey,
Cousin.
Doctor.
Doctor.
And we're back. And apparently I screwed myself up on the intro. Something that I've memorized, yet for some reason when I was looking at the notes I always have for it, it screwed me up.
You just blink.
Yeah,
that's all.
I blanked, because
oh.
yeah, if I closed my eyes, I could have said it perfectly fine, but the fact that I was looking at the words and then got mixed up screwed me up. God, professional.
Yeah.
What can I say? Look it up. So yeah, here we are.
Continuing cult month.
Continuing cult. This is one of the better known, I guess, cultier movies, to the point where there's, merchandise up the ass for this movie.
Yeah.
And just a, I don't know, beloved movie, I would think, by this point.
Yeah.
I mean, you're nary to find a person who doesn't like it.
Like we said last week, this is John Carpenter's other culty hit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't count Halloween and the Thing as
That's
cult
not.
movies.
They're not cult movies.
Yeah,
those are
legitimate,
films.
Yeah,
I mean,
or blockbusters even.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely call the original Halloween a landmark horror film.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone would argue with me on that. But yeah, so here we are with Big Trouble in Little China. Like I said, a film that pretty much everyone watched as a kid, except for me. I never saw this as a kid.
Well, when you told me that last week, I think it was off mic, I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, I don't know how the hell I managed to avoid this as a kid, but I did.
Like, you've seen it before,
oh, yeah, no,
but
I've definitely,
you just haven't seen it ad nauseum
no, I never,
most.
Exactly, and if I'd seen this, I do feel like my childhood was lesser by not having seen this as a kid, because this is definitely one of the quintessential, PG-13 films of the 80s that every kid can quote ad nauseum kind of thing. And rightfully so. But yeah, it's so strange that I never saw it. There's a handful of movies like this. A handful of movies and a handful of video games where I'm like, everybody has great memories of childhood from these, and I never saw them.
Not by choice.
No, just never got around to it.
Some movies escape you.
Oddly enough, another film that is one of my favorites, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Never saw it as a kid. Never once. I saw it for the first time at the age of 22.
One can make an argument that that's not a children's movie.
This is true, but considering that other childhood movies for me were Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare,
no,
and,
agreed, I'm just...
I'm pretty confident I would have gotten away with it perfectly fine, but I see your
Those
point.
aren't presented as a
No, they're certainly not, but,
And I don't know about a movie about a guy who kills children in a chocolate factory.
True.
We'll get there,
we'll get there someday, for sure. But with that being said, we will go back to the year 1986 for Big Trouble in Little China. Okay, so here we are. July 2nd, 1986, my 4th birthday. Yeah. That's cool.
I am -2 and change.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's more amazing that it actually is my birthday.
That's true. On the nose.
Yeah. Too bad we should have worked the schedule out where we covered this on July 2nd because we're actually going to be podcasting on my birthday this year.
Like, find a movie that came out on July 2nd and do that one?
Yeah.
I'm sure several movies other than this one did.
I'm certain there is. I mean,
I don't know if it's anything good other than this.
You know what? One day I will look it up and see what was in theaters on my birthday, and we'll cover one of those movies one day, and we'll see how good it was. I for the life of me, I can't remember. I know I looked it up once, but I have no idea what it was.
Right.
But that being said, Big Trouble in Little China, directed by John Carpenter. Writer Gary, this gets a little weird. Writer Gary Goldman and David Z. Weinstein. Adapted by W.D. Richter. Sound familiar? Sorry, never mind. It doesn't get weird. It's another thing. I was doing notes for next week. It gets weird next week. Sorry. I'm getting all screwed up now. Produced by Larry J. Franco. Produced and distributed by 20th Century Fox. Box office of $11.1 million against a budget of $19 to $25 million. It sort of
that's what makes it a cult film.
Yeah, this movie did not do well at all. So that being said, the cast is Kurt Russell as Jack Burton, Kim Cattrall as Gracie Law, Dennis Dunn as Wang Chi, James Hong as David Lopan, Victor Wong as Egg Shen, Kate Burton as Margot Litzenberger, Donald Lee as Eddie Lee, Carter Wong as Thunder, Peter Kwong as Rain, James Pax as Lightning, Susie Pai as Mao Yim, Chow Lee Chi as Uncle Chu, and Jeff Imada as Needles. I did alright with those names. I thought I was going to screw half of them up, I'm not going to lie.
And not credited, but kind of Bob Genghis Khan.
This is true.
Al Leong.
I hesitated on throwing it in there, but I'm like, no, he really doesn't even have a line in this movie.
Making like a third or fourth appearance on this show.
But Bob Genghis Khan, a favorite around here. So, the production of this film, let's see. The first version of the screenplay, and it does get weird, I forgot. This was a different one, too. First version of the screenplay was written by first-time screenwriters Gary Goldman and David Z. Weinstein. Goldman had been inspired by new wave of martial arts films that had all sorts of weird actions and special effects shot against this background of Oriental mysticism and modern sensibilities. They had written a Western, originally set in the 1880s, with Jack Burton as a cowboy who rides into town. They envisioned what amounts to a weird Western, in this case combining Chinese fantasy elements within an Old West setting.
I'd pay good money to see that movie.
Apparently no one else would. They submitted the script to Taft Entertainment Pictures executive producers Paul Monash and Keith Barish during the summer of 1982. The year I was born. The summer of 82. I'll stop. Monash brought the script and had them do at least one rewrite, but still did not like the result. He remembers the problem came largely with the fact that it was set at the turn-of-the-century San Francisco, which affected everything, style, dialogue, and action. Goldman rejected a request by 20th Century Fox for a rewrite that asked for major alterations. He was angered when the studio wanted to update it to a contemporary setting. The studio then removed the writers from the project. However, they still wanted credit for their contributions, which happens a fuck ton. The studio brought in screenwriter W.D. Richter, who was a script doctor and directed our last movie, to extensively rewrite the script, as he felt that the Wild West and fantasy elements did not work together. The screenwriter modernized everything. Almost everything in the original script was discarded except for Lopan's story. Richter realized that what it needed wasn't a rewrite but a complete overhaul. It was a dreadful screenplay. Richter used Rosemary's Baby as his template, presenting the foreground story in a familiar context rather than San Francisco at the turn of the century, which distances the audience immediately, and just have one simple place and underground. You have a much better chance of making a direct contact with the audience. He wrote his own draft in 10 weeks. Goldman actually contacted Richter and suggested that he should not work on the project. Richter told him, "I'm sorry the studio doesn't want you guys, but my turning it down isn't going to get you the job. They'll just hire someone else." At one point, the film was going to be a sequel to The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. Sure, I bet it was. I bet it was. No fucking way. Although at the same time, maybe it was, because this was right before probably he went into work on Buckaroo Banzai. So maybe?
Like it would have been Buckaroo Banzai taking on like Razzle and Lopan, or?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, considering he was a samurai himself, I mean, we never saw him samurai. as I've pointed out, that's now how we refer to it, as samuraiing people. Check out our episode last week. Fox wanted to deny Goldman and Weinstein writing credit and eliminated their names from press releases and gave it solely to Richter, which they should have. In March 1986, the Writers Guild of America determined that written by credit should go to Goldberg and Weinstein based on the WGA screenwriting credit system, which protects original writers. However, Richter did get an adaptation by credit for his work on the script. Director John Carpenter was disappointed that Richter did not get a proper screenwriting credit because of this ruling. Carpenter made his own additions to Richter's rewrites, which included strengthening the Gracie's law role and linking her to Chinatown, removing a few action sequences due to budgetary restrictions, and eliminating material he thought would be offensive to Chinese Americans. Probably a good idea.
Yeah, let's,
Especially in 1986, who knew? Yeah. The script was first offered to Carpenter in July of 1985. He had read the Goldman-Weinstein script and deemed it outrageously unreadable, though it had many interesting elements. This is what I'm getting at, is nobody wanted this shit. Fox was afraid that the production would create major overruns and hired Carpenter to direct because he could work fast. He was given only 10 weeks of pre-production, which is crazy for a movie. The Golden Child featured a similar theme and was going to be released around the same time as Big Trouble in Little China. As it happened, Carpenter was asked by Paramount Pictures to direct The Golden Child. He said in an interview, "How many adventure pictures dealing with Chinese mysticism have been released by the major studios in the past 20 years? For two of them to come along at the exact same time is more than mere coincidence. To beat the rival production at being released in theaters, Big Trouble went into production in October 85 so that it could open in July of 86, 5 months before The Golden Child's Christmas release."
It's okay, that movie didn't do too well either.
Nope.
Did it? No, it didn't.
No,
right?
it failed miserably.
That was one of the blips on Eddie Murphy's resume.
Right before he went into full-scale downward. And then back up in horrible films. But you never know. To also compete with the Golden Child's casting of Eddie Murphy, Carpenter wanted a big star of his own, but both Clint Eastwood and Jack Nicholson were considered, but were busy at the time.
Jesus Christ, this movie with Clint fucking Eastwood.
I'm sorry, this movie with Jack Nicholson would have been the greatest fucking thing that's ever
Jack
happened.
Nicholson would have been great, because I'm pretty sure Jack Burton, that's Kurt Russell kind of doing a Jack Nicholson impersonation. A little bit. But Clint Eastwood would have just taken it in a completely different
It would have
direction.
been so dark, and I don't think any of the comedic elements of Jack Burton would have came across even remotely. So,
show it to me straight, Wang. Oh, what are you even
Jesus.
saying?
Yeah. Open your mouth, old man.
Your
Jesus.
mouth.
Stop mumbling, damn it.
Because he was 106 in the 80s.
He really was. He really was. He was never less than 100. I'm pretty confident he came out of his mother just like, hey, give me a pack of cigarettes. I just assumed that
Like
that's
a Benjamin Button. He just
Absolutely.
never got younger.
Yeah, he's just a stilted Benjamin Button.
Fair enough.
That's a movie I'd watch. Clint Eastwood as a kid.
7, I do need my pants.
Yeah.
Okay.
You gonna believe me?
Although he's 111, he probably did duty his pants.
Yeah, exactly. He just needs, he needs older people to change him now. I love Clint Eastwood. I don't want him to think that we're making fun of him.
Please don't shoot me with your very scary
very,
gun.
very large gun. I'll get off your lawn, I promise. The studio felt Kurt Russell was an up-and-coming star. Russell was initially not interested because he felt there were a number of different ways to approach Jack, but I didn't know if there's a way that it would be interesting enough for the movie. After talking to Carpenter and reading the script a couple more times, he gained insight into the character and liked the notion of playing, as he says, a hero who has so many faults. Jack is and isn't the hero. He falls on his ass as much as he comes through.
He's
this guy's
the
a real
sidekick in this
blowhard.
picture.
He really is. He's a lot of hot air. He's a very self-assured screw-up, which is true. Because as much as he's playing himself off as the hero, he's completely the sidekick. But he will not allow himself to be the sidekick, which is why it's genius. He also felt at heart he thinks he's Indiana Jones, but the circumstances are always too much for him. He also thought at the time, this is a difficult picture to sell because it's hard to explain. It's a mixture of the real history of Chinatown and San Francisco blended with Chinese legend and lore. It's bizarre stuff. There are only a handful of non-Asian actors in the cast. At the time, that was a hard sell to American audiences.
Handful, there's 4?
Non-Asians? Yeah, that's about a handful. 4
I
is
guess,
a handful.
yeah, fair enough.
4's a handful.
Yeah, 4's a
considering
handful.
that the rest of the cast is Asian American.
I'm just saying that, like, only 2 of them are, like, prominently featured.
True. Well, 3.
3 if you count Margot.
Yeah, I think you do.
The 4th guy, he's at the beginning. That's